welcome. This is Ask the CEO program here on Church of Uganda Family TV. My name is John Jimmy Musimbi. Now, of course, I do welcome you once more to Ask the CEO program. This is a decisive program which educates, instigates, admonishes, and triggers of the youths to become world-class excellent performers. And of course, in this program, we host top managers and CEOs who enlighten us on what it takes to be at the topmost top. This program is also powered by the Young and Flourishing Foundation, that is the Y&F. And of course, this is an organization that envisions an equipped and empowered generation of young people that lead to the transformation of Africa. Now, Y&F mission is to transform Africa through training, inspiring, equipping young people to create solutions for the socio-economic emancipation. Young&F also envisions a network of about 50 million world-class leaders and mentors in Africa by 2043. Now, also key to note today is that I am very glad to host a very passionate person who is passionate about the transformation of Africa. He's the director and founder of Africa Population Institute, operating here in Uganda, South Sudan, and Kenya. He has obtained a PhD, imagine, at 31 years of age, and his name is Dr. Benita Rumanzi. John Jimmy Musimbi is my name and your host this evening. Welcome to the show, Doctor.
Oh, thank you very much, Jimmy. I'm glad to be here this evening.
Please say hello to our viewers.
Hello, viewers. Good evening. Wherever you are watching from, I am glad for Family TV for giving us this opportunity to reach out to the youth and to speak to them, to inspire them on how they can be very formidable in whatever they do, and in the attempt to transform Africa from poverty, ignorance, and disease. That has always been the three killer diseases of Africa.
Well, it sounds interesting, of course, to get up the conversation and somebody to know what actually awaits them as we are going to have this discussion during the show. Now, Dr. Rumanzi, on this show of Ask the CEO, we normally want to hear the story of our guests from the first principle. The viewer out there watching would love to know, who is Dr. Benita Rumanzi?
Rumanzi is a father, married to one wife with 4 sons, and I know that they are watching me right now. And he's also a director of a big institution, Africa Population Institute. And I'm also doing a lot of other businesses. I'm in farming, agribusiness, and all sorts of things. But all in all, I am someone who has a passion to transform Africa from the killer diseases that I talked about. And that's the reason I came up with something that binds us together, the spirit of Africa. And it dwells in Pan-Africanism. So I really imagine that this topic tonight, Ask the CEO, I'm sure that someone watching us out there will be blessed because of what we are going to discuss tonight.
Yeah, you've talked about Pan-Africanism. When I was introducing you, I talked of the Africa Population Institute.
Yes.
Before we go further, what is Africa Population Institute? What does it do?
Yeah, Africa Population Institute is an institution of higher learning, accredited and licensed by the Uganda National Council for Higher Education, but is also operating under the NGO Act, the Non-Governmental Organization Act of Uganda, and we help a lot of people. So it is both non-profit, but it also serves the communities around us. And we are not only here in Uganda, we are also in South Sudan, we are also in Kenya, and we are thinking of expanding our springboard to cover the whole of Africa and to be able to transform the mindset of an African youth. Instead of a youth running to go to look for greener pastures outside, we can make Africa greener than any other continent. Because when you look at our population of Africa, Africa is the second biggest continent in the whole world. And it has a population of 1.4 billion, which is only 16% of the total population. So you can imagine the vast land, the vast resources that we have that can be harnessed here instead of us running away from our own continent. So if we can really put in our very best, then we shall also be finding people seeking for visas to come to Africa.
Wow, I think I love the ending part of people also trying to seek visas or find visas to come to Africa. It's a good thing. Well, now you've explained what Africa Population Institute does. You also highlighted to do with Pan-Africanism. What is Pan-Africanism to the lay person watching us?
To the lay person, Pan-Africanism is the attempt to create a sense of brotherhood and collaboration among all people of African descent, whether here in Africa or outside in the other continents. But we need to have that sense of belonging, that we are Africans. And it is our responsibility to transform this continent instead of running away from it through brainwashing. So as Africa Population Institute, we have a vision to raise a generation that is knowledgeable and skillful for the transformation of Africa through education and sensitization on population and health issues. So if we can deal with our health issues and the population sector, then we will be able to achieve the mission, which is to insinuate and empower the population with the knowledge and skills to be self-reliant in the fight against the three killer diseases I talked about, which is poverty, ignorance, and disease. So as Africans, we need to come up and strengthen our sustainability and capacity building programs that ensures people's performance and productivity instead of running out of this continent. I'm telling you, I wish to live and see Africa transformed and being at the top. And we, the leaders, the youth, we have been told that we are the leaders of tomorrow. But I believe this is the right time for the youth to wake up and take possession of what belongs to them. Instead of being hired to use machetes against one another, we can actually transform our continent and harmoniously without fighting and without hassle. These borders we have were created by the colonials. And maybe they were using divide and rule, maybe they were using direct rule, but all what we need to see is a united Africa that has a common goal to achieve what affects us.
Well, you put out very good points about Pan-Africa, but you see, many people out there, especially the young people that this program actually appeals to, I think have lost that sense of Pan-Africanism, especially when you look at the ladies think maybe owning hair that looks like the white people is to them civilization, which I think it's westernization, not civilization. You find a child of P1 knows so many musicians abroad and they do not know anything African. What does it take to have passion for Africa? Because from the look of things, it's still bad news.
Jimmy, the reason we are here tonight is to help someone who is viewing us to understand their take in this process of transforming Africa. You need to be, there are two terminologies that I studied in sociology when I was at the university. There is what we call xenocentric and ethnocentric. Ethnocentric is when you think that you are more powerful, and xenocentric is when you think that you are inferior. and then other people are more superior. So Africa, we need to be transformed from being ethnocentric from being xenocentric to being ethnocentric, whereby we have to look at what we have and we become proud of who we are. We become proud of our identity as Africans. And then our cultures, we know that they complement one another. And therefore, that's what will help an African youth or an African leader to understand that even what we have here is the best. And we need to keep and build on that. Yes, I'm not saying westernization is bad or borrowing what we are borrowing from abroad, but sometimes we need to look at our culture, how we can keep it, how we can preserve it. You find that these days children don't even know their mother tongue. They speak only English.
That's actually very true.
And it is very much perplexing to find that people are forgetting their culture and they are getting into a culture which they cannot even get into. There is something that I read about on social media, and they were saying that how did an African, I know we are on Church of Uganda Family TV, but I will just mention it because it pondered in my mind.
Yeah.
They said, how do the whites, how did they convince Africans that homosexuality is better than polygamy? You understand? The other one is a human right, and the polygamy is what? So all of those are evils. They are not accepted biblically. But we believe that we need to look at what are African values, and we follow that.
True.
Yes.
That's a very good thing. And to you, our dear viewer who is watching us out there, I just hope that you're really getting the message we are trying to put out there. Because if each one of us had the passion for Africa, had the passion to transform and see Africa become the new America, the new Germany, surely we wouldn't be having the African children going to suffer in the outside world. Just like Dr. Benita has mentioned, we would love to see people getting visas and boarding planes to Africa, because Africans then would have showed that there is something more to Africa than people just terming it as a black continent. Now, Ask the CEO do takes a very short commercial break. We return shortly. Please do stay with us.
Family TV, enriching lives. Family TV, enriching lives.
Welcome back from that short commercial break. You're still with me, John Jimmy Musimbi, and Dr. Rumanzi Benita. The show is Ask the CEO here on Church of Uganda Family TV. And of course, do remember that Church of Uganda Family TV broadcasts from the 13th floor at Church House in the heart of Kampala. Now, we are discussing issues to do with Pan-Africanism. And of course, my guest is the CEO of a company which deals in issues to do with Pan-Africanism, and that is Africa Population Institute. And we are discussing the spirit of Pan-Africanism. Now, Doctor, by the time we went into the break, we were still trying to understand why people do not have that spirit of Pan-Africanism, like we had mentioned. And I really wanted to know, how does somebody develop that passion for Africa, that we can be proud like other people? Of course, there are a few. We do not want to say that every African is not proud of their continent. No, that's not true. There are people who walk African, who dream Africa. People like you that are changing lives and inspiring people to love their continent. But one thing that I would love to point out maybe is that most of us, especially the youth, prefer to play safe in trading in our countries like Uganda. How did you manage to start the Africa Population Institute in South Sudan and Kenya? How easy was this? Tell us about the journey. How has this been perceived, and how is it progressing?
Thank you, Jimmy. The last time I was on this set, I was talking about daring in life. And daring in life is taking a risk. So I talked about high-risk ventures being a motivation to the entrepreneurs. So in this case, I looked at our problems as Africa were uniform. Our problems were poverty, poor education, ill health, violence, hunger, sustainable agriculture, nutrition and food insecurity, access to financing, and economic growth was too low. And it was uniform across the continent. So I said, no. The problem we have here in Uganda, if I'm to solve a problem here and I stop here, it is like a drop in an ocean. Then we thought of enlarging our influence and enlarging our territories. That's how we started getting into different countries to market our ideology. Our ideology is, as Africans, yes, we can do it. Actually, our strapline as Africa Population Institute is together we can. So the reason we looked at this, we borrowed an example of the Puritans. The Puritans are these people who came from the UK or England and Europe, and they were very disgruntled, just like David's followers. They were very disgruntled people. And then they went to the US, which is called the United States of America right now. But the original inhabitants were the Red Indians, and it was a very remote area, far much backward than the stock of Africa being a dark continent. But when these people got there, they had to sit and think on how they can create their own world. So they were tired of these kingdoms. Everywhere in Europe there were kingdoms and run by kings and princes and princesses. So it was hard to break into the upper strata. But when they went to this America, they said every man can be a king. That's why they had that mentality of building big things. And they call Africa the land, America the land of what? The wise and the dream land. So in that case, I said, why can't we say, as Africans, why don't we come up and unite and see what we can do for Africa? We have a lot of untapped resources, which resources have been probably swindled for the last maybe 200 or 300 years. It has been like Africa has been supplying other continents.
Because maybe they have no capacity to
supplying other continents.
To make ready most of these resources for their own benefit.
Oh, yeah. So because of that, then I said, can we see what we borrow from these people? Look at the way the king of UAE has built Dubai. Dubai, he sent people to Europe, to America, New York,
to benchmark,
to go and study how things are done, like Disney World. And then he brought it and built it.
A desert
in
to
a
what
bigger
it is
and
today.
better way. So now Dubai is a one-stop center simply because it has united all the developments that are all over the world, and they are all found in one place. So everyone wants to visit Dubai. So can we build one here?
And it's very possible.
It is very possible. We can borrow from that. When you look at Africa being the biggest continent, no, the second biggest from Asia, we have approximately 30.7 million kilometers squared. And that is a lot of land.
That is huge, yeah.
And much of it is arable land, which is agricultural land, whereby you can cultivate food that feeds the whole world. But it's unfortunate that we are getting food from Ukraine. Right now we are talking of high food prices simply because there is war between Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah.
So can we do something as Africans, and we have our own food, and we grow our own food, and we export that food to the world? Can we harness the resources that we have and we are able to share them with the world instead of them taking them in a raw format? Of recent, I love what our president talked about when he was talking of transforming coffee. Instead of selling coffee beans, can we have coffee processed here? Much as the procurement process of how it is done, it was not clear, but we would say if there was a clear way, then we will be exporting the finest coffee from Uganda to the rest of the world. So that is it.
Actually, you've talked about coffee. One of the MPs, to be specific, Ibrahim Semjonganda, on one of the radio talk shows over the weekend, was talking of a time he was in another country and he was seeing packed coffee of Kenya and other countries, and Uganda, which is actually rich in this, you do not find its packed coffee in most of these other developed countries, and that is really sad. So if coffee can be packaged, if it can be done here, to me I think that is really something that is rich. So how is this organization progressing in Uganda, in South Sudan, in Kenya? How have been the responses from the people in those countries? Is the response positive in all of them, or there is somewhere where you're still pulling ropes? And how is the responsiveness?
Yeah, selling our ideology has been not easy. It is not a walkway, not walk through, but somewhere, somehow, people are buying the ideas, and the good thing, we are dealing with the youth and young people, and we are also dealing with students. And you know, students are transformative. So when you deal with them, you don't know to what effect. It is called a ripple effect. You deal with one, and one influences another, who will influence another, and you don't know to what extent our impact can go. But we have tried to do our very best to enlighten Africans and tell them, yes, as Africans, there is something we can offer to the world. I love this. I was watching this World Cup that is going on, and some people there is a skit of villagers discussing, and they were saying, no, Africa, all the teams in the world on the World Cup, they have Africans. And France had the most number of Africans in their team. Of recent, I was in France, and I realized how these people have developed their country and how they are passionate about their country. But then I realized one error that I saw, that most of the people who are technical, the architects, are elderly. So I was wondering, if these people right now, they phase out, then who will take over?
Exactly.
Because the young have concentrated probably in IT and other things, but they are not going into the technical part of it. So this is now a wake-up call for Africa, that we need to harness all our population pyramid, from the youngest population to the upmost population, and we tell them this is what each one, the role that each person can play. Because it is projected by 2050 that Africa's population will have doubled. So if right now we are 1.4 billion, then by 2050, probably we may be 2.8 billion. Yes, but that is not a problem, because we have vast resources. What matters is right now leadership, to make sure that they mobilize the people to know what they need to be doing and their stake in Africa.
As somebody who has taken a lot of time in this, to what extent have we moved to achieve this? How far are we when you can try to judge and evaluate on this journey we are moving to ensure that all these things you're talking about become a reality here in Africa?
Yeah, basically we are not doing badly. I really don't want to discourage anyone watching us right now that we are the worst people on the planet Earth. No, we are not doing badly, but at least we are making strides. I commend our leadership, our leaders, to continue with the efforts of transforming Africa. You know, once you deal with the head, and then the others will follow.
But do you think the leaders you're talking about have really done much? Because majority of these you're talking about are the same people who think Makerere or Uganda Christian University is not good for their child. They fly them off to Harvard, you know? So are we really achieving or practicing what we are preaching? Or because calling upon them is okay. Them coming to a press conference and talking about it is okay. But what is the reality on the ground to these people you're calling upon?
Basically, sending their children to Harvard is not bad, because if they are sending them to learn and come back and transform this continent, we can do the China kind of syndrome, whereby Chinese also send people across to different places. And then those people, maybe they go on a state scholarship or state-funded errands, and they come back specifically to do what they have learned from wherever they have been. So it is an urge to those in the diaspora. If you are in the diaspora, you are not there just to kukubache or make money for yourself. Please learn something that you can come back and do here. I got this idea when I was in Germany. I had visited Hamburg, and I had a symposium at the University of Hamburg, and I saw the way the place was organized. When you saw the underground train system, you saw their cities, the way they organized. I said, you mean our leaders have visited this country and they are doing what they are doing? So sometimes you wish to know that if they have visited this country, can't you learn and say, no, if I have seen this, let me go and do it in our own country or for my own people. Probably if you have the capacity, if I'm the speaker of the parliament, then I will know what needs to be done, and then I will direct the debate in the parliament towards what needs to be done. So I'm not saying they are not doing their part, they are doing it, but I want to commend them to put in their very best, and let us work in harmony to transform this continent, because it begins with us. It is not about what I own as Rumanzi, but what have I done for Uganda,
and of course,
and
which is
Africa.
a contribution.
Yes, there is this man Abraham Lincoln. I love his quote when he said that you don't ask America what America has done for you, but ask yourself what have you done for America. So if we can all ask ourselves, what have we done for Uganda, what have we done for Africa, what have we done for our communities, then it will help us to develop this country, to develop this continent.
Well,
otherwise, if I want to do it personally, I will not go far. There is a saying which says, if you want to go far, you can't move alone. But if you want to move faster, then it's better move alone. But if you want to go far, please make sure you move with others.
I love that. Now the discussion still goes on. We are discussing the spirit of Pan-Africanism. Welcome back from that commercial break. A very deep conversation here with my guest in studio and my producer. But moving on with Ask the CEO, I would love to understand from you, we've shared all these things, but what does African transformation mean to the person watching?
Yeah, to a lay person, or I wouldn't say a common man, African transformation is basically dealing with the roots that have bound us for a long time. There is a book I read about redirecting the imbalance, that why is Africa left behind? And people were talking about that Africa, we are the sons of Seth, who was cast, the son of Noah, the black one, who was cast because he saw his father's nakedness. So some of those things have made us to believe that we have to stay timid, to believe that we are inferior. But in this case, if we are to transform Africa, then we need to deal with the mindset to know that an African is the person who was here before the colonialists, before the world began. They were here and they have been here and they are here to stay. If anything, if we were to go, then we would have vanished a long time ago, because every odd seems to be against us. But for this case, I would say Africa, we need to come up with our indigenous societies, work together, and we know what affects us, and that will help us. There is when they gave the Batwa program, Batwa are the Pygmies in southwestern Uganda, and there is an NGO that came and said, these people are staying outside. They sleep in the trees and they are like animals. So they said, let's build for them houses without participant observation, without dealing with them, without involving them. They went and built for them iron sheet houses. And when they were happy that they are now in the houses, but when it rained and they heard the noise that was on top of the roof, all of them ran out of the houses. They said, the gods must be crazy. And they ran out and went back into the bush. But if they had been like oriented and they have been told what to expect, or they were involved in the decision making, that would have helped them. So here in Africa, if we want to transform Africa, then we need Africans themselves, not someone sitting in at the World Bank in New York or Washington, D.C., and is the one making decisions for us here. No, sure. We need to stand up and say, no, we know what affects us, and we deal with that.
So henceforth now, then, how will Africa change in the future?
Yeah, I have seen that Africa, according to the report, there is a report that Africa is the fastest growing continent. The fastest growing continent in the whole world. This is according to the Development Effectiveness Review of 2013. So when we say that it's the fastest growing development, it means a continent. It means that we are not doing badly. People are working. People are investing. Even those who go outside and they work a little bit of money, they come and invest back here in our countries. But the diasporians, I want to urge them and say that is not enough to keep on sending money to Africa. It is like we are having a beggar my neighbor policy, to keep on asking what we need, what people should give us. But if we teach the people to be self-reliant, to know what needs to be done and when it should be done, then they will know that it is not good to be on receiving end only. But we should also know that we can also offer something to the world. I have seen people who are doing very well, like this Dangote of Nigeria. The man started as a lay business leader, but right now his business is numbered globally. So for that case, I would say Africans, we are not stupid people. We are very intelligent.
So then somebody would ask again that from the discussion we are having here, is Africa becoming developed?
Yes, we do. We are developing. We are developing, though at a stagnant way or sluggard way, but we are developing. But there is a saying in my language that mpora mpora ekaiso munyangoro wa means, meaning that slowly by slowly made the earthworm reach the well. Yes, if we continue with what we are doing right now, basically we shall reach our desired future. All we have to do is to know what we need, is to put in our very best, teach our children not to be dependent, but also to be productive.
Well, we've talked about all these things, but I would love to understand, we've discussed Africa, passion, so many things. But in your own opinion, what do you think are the major challenges that are disturbing Africa as a continent?
Our major challenges are actually in this continent. It is the other three. They can be summarized in the other three that I mentioned at the beginning: poverty, ignorance, and disease. But this can be dealt with by educating an African child. Educating is educating someone 360 degrees, not just teaching them to become on the recipient side, to have white collar jobs only, but also to be productive, what they need to do. So these challenges can be poverty, poor education, ill health, violence, hunger. You've seen how many Africans are fighting one another. You've seen the hunger that is in Karamoja. You've seen how we have food insecurity. All of those are problems that we have as a continent. But I urge our leaders, from the presidents to the peasants, please, let's work hand in hand to make sure that we solve our problems as Africa. But yes, we can be helped by foreign agencies, but if we don't put in our very best, we shall be like we are writing on water.
So then, what advice do you give to the African youth outside there who is probably hopeless because of unemployment or underemployment, that they reach an extent and say, let me go and die in the Arab world, let me go and suffer abroad, but we have not remained in Africa?
Yeah, it begins with the mindset. It begins with the mindset whereby people, they need to know that even without going abroad, you can actually do something here. You can begin with agri-business. There are a lot of businesses that are revolving around agriculture, and you do something. But I understand that some people don't have land. Yes, but there is land that you can lease. There is land that you can that has been vacant and idle, which can be harnessed if you come up with an idea. Even I understand the NFA was giving National Forest Authority was giving free land to people around Luwero, those who are supposed to plant trees, but you can dig around and put your own things until when they mature. So all of that depends on the capacity building. So our youth or our young people need their capacity to be built and to be enhanced. And that will be done if our leaders do research, not only our leaders, but also if you do research and know where there is a gap, then try to fill in that gap. Yeah.
I understand. Now, as a mentor at Young and Flourishing, of course, us who are outside here who look at you, we are optimistic that a new crop of fearless, purpose-driven generation is being raised. We hope we shall not be disappointed at any point.
Yeah, true. So at Young and Flourishing Hub, we have capacity building toward sustainable Africa. We want to see Africa that is sustainable, whereby whatever we do needs to be sustainable. So that's why sometimes we provide community services, including consultancies, that help those who have like resources, but they don't know how to harness them and they don't know how to use them. So if you contact us, we can give you a business idea, because I understand that one difference between a rich man and a poor man is an idea. If you get an idea right now, this TV began because it was an idea of someone. So we need to engineer the development of health-related research. We do that to engineer that health-related research that deals with developmental issues, that we need to look at our history, our roots, where we come from, and then our heritage, and where we are going. Then we come up with the solutions to our own problems as Africans. And finally, I think we also need to make a greater economic contribution to our communities. There are a number of income generating activities that we can come up with and help our people, our young people, how to form groups. I also want to commend the government programs like the PDA, Parish Development Model. You understand, when people come together in a group and then they are given money that they can use to transform themselves. So it begins with an individual to transform yourself, then you can help, you can transform others. Even when you are like in a plane and you are traveling, they say if a plane is going to crash, you shouldn't start by helping the child to put maybe there is this oxygen mask. You shouldn't start with the child. First save yourself with a mask, oxygen mask, and then after you are safe, you can also what? Try to help others, to save others. So as Africans, we need to know that we need to first deal with ourselves and on an individual basis, and then we now help the communities around us, and together we can transform Africa.
You have a lot of good ideas which you have actually moved a step ahead to ensure that you make them come true as dreams. But what do you think you've not done? What is that burning desire in you for Africa?
The burning desire is that, of course, with the authorities in a place, there's something that you do, and you must do it according to how the colonialists left it. A case in reference that we don't believe in innovations here in Africa. Before you become an innovator or you come up with something, then it has to be approved according to the what we call the gold standard, which was established by a colonialist or by someone who is not an African. So if I am to begin, say like a training institution, like Africa Preparation Institute, you find that there are a number of issues that you must handle, probably with the National Council for Higher Education. And you must do it the way they want it. Even if you have a different idea on how you can do it and you feel it can work, you have to follow the rules and the guidelines and the procedures that have been set before you. And that affects the performance.
Okay, our time is fast spent. So please, in your winding up remarks, just say what you feel you need to say before you leave, and also say a good night to our viewers.
The viewers listen to us, especially the young people. I want to encourage you to always watch this Flourishing Hub and this Ask the CEO. Know the people who have gone before you, what challenges they went through, and how it can help you to learn from their mistake. There is a saying that goes that it's only, wise people learn from others' others' mistakes. So in that case, it is only a fool that will go ahead and do a mistake which another person has already done, and yet he is already seeing it. So we need to learn the lives of people. Of recent, I just took an idea of reading about successful people, those who have gone before us and what they are doing. So reading is the key. Try to discover what people did and where they messed up, where they went wrong, and try to edit that and do it the right way. So viewers, I want to say good night, and we hope to see you next time.
Well, that is Dr. Benita Rumanzi for you. And I won't go beyond this. My name is John Jimmy Musimbi, and thank you so much, our dear viewer out there who spent your time and tuned in to Church of Uganda Family TV for Ask the CEO. As of now, I would love to wish you a good night. See you next week.